So what we're gonna be talking about are the 5 components to Jack Sock's forehand. And by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how to hit a forehand just like Jack Sock. Number 1 is Jack's footwork. A lot of people will hear footwork, they'll skip, but footwork is his foundation that allows him to be able to get so much power and spin on his shot because he's utilizing his legs to not only rotate, but also create all of that power as he hits through the shot. So can you have power without footwork? Absolutely, but not as much as Jack creates. A lot of it is coming from his feet. So Jack, he actually stands with an open stance. So he's facing towards his opponents. If you were my opponent, I would be in an open stance towards you. He also stands with a semi-closed stance or a semi-open stance. And that's kind of like this, where your non-dominant leg is slightly out in front, but you're still facing towards your opponents. It just depends on the shot that he's hitting. There's also closed stance, and that would be where my non-dominant leg is out in front of me. If you were my opponents, I'd be facing my non-dominant shoulder towards you if I was hitting a forehand, dominant shoulder if I was hitting a backhand. You don't really want to use a closed stance in pickleball, and the reason for that is because you're not going to be open towards the court. Federico Staksrud actually came onto our podcast and he talked about the importance of an open stance and how he's been practicing it. He's actually been watching videos of goalies and how they have this open stance and then they jump to either side to block the ball from going into the goal. Now with goalies, it totally makes sense, but it also makes sense in pickleball because the ball is so much closer to us than in other racket sports. So we want to stay open so that we can go to either side and we're not closed off one side or the other. So you need to practice this footwork and having an open stance. Now what he is doing is he takes his dominant leg and he steps with that dominant leg. He's going to step with it on an angle like this. It's not totally towards the side fence. It's also not totally towards his opponents, but it's on this angle, this pivoting angle. That allows him to be able to rotate through the shot, get a ton of topspin, and also create a ton of power through his legs. All of the weight is on his dominant leg as he makes contact, and then he steps with his non-dominant leg every single time. You won't see him hit a forehand on his non-dominant leg. All the weight is always going to be on that dominant leg, and then it transfers to his non-dominant leg. By the way, the sponsor of this video is Titan. This is the ball machine that I use. I absolutely love it. It's the greatest ball machine of all time, has the greatest technology built into it, fastest motors, fastest ability to change from going super fast speed to super slow. It can hit you balls in every single direction, and the best part about it is that you just have to put it in one location, right at the center of the baseline, and it stays there throughout your entire training session. So I absolutely love that. It's extremely convenient. If you want to pick up one of these, you can get it for $100 off through my link. I'll link it right here as well as in the description. Let's continue with the video. Number 2 is Jack's grip that he uses. And he actually uses a continental grip, which makes a whole lot of sense because he comes from a tennis background. So coming from a tennis background, that's going to be most comfortable because it's perfect for hitting both a backhand and a forehand. Now it kind of restricts your forehand a little bit more than your backhand, makes your backhand a whole lot easier. If you move your grip slightly more this way, you're obviously going to have a better forehand, but your backhand's going to suffer. So Continental is that perfect in-between. It's where you're gonna have a good backhand and a good forehand. This is what I suggest. Every starter player starts with Continental, and then you can experiment with other grips in the future. But this is gonna be a great foundational grip for both sides. So how do we find that grip? We're actually gonna put our paddle butt towards ourselves. And as you can see, it has these 8 sides. It makes an octagon shape like a stop sign. There's bevel number 1 right here on the top, and then there's bevel number 2. As you move towards your dominant side, wherever your dominant side is. If you're lefty, it'd be this way. If you're righty, it'd be this way. Okay, so since I'm righty, it'd be this one as bevel number 2. And I'm gonna put the inside of my index knuckle and the bottom of my palm on that exact bevel. So again, right here, bevel number 1, bevel number 2. It's this little half bevel right here. Comes all the way up through here. I find that bevel number 2 and I put index knuckle, bottom of my palm on that exact bevel to where it lines up. You want to act like there's a Sharpie drawing a line on your palm. So now you're in that grip, and it puts you to where if you put your paddle out in front of you, your frame is completely flat. If I move slightly over this way, it favors my forehand. If I move slightly over this way, it favors my backhand. You want to have it right here because it's going to favor both. Number 3 is Jack's unit load. So this is him loading up for the shot so that he can create all that power. Now we already know what we're doing with the feet. We talked about it before, but he is stepping with that dominant leg, then he's hitting and then stepping with his non-dominant leg. All of the weight's on that dominant leg, but what is he doing with his upper extremities? With his arms, he has his paddle out in front. He's then going to move and put his non-dominant shoulder towards his opponent. This is known as a unit turn. This is loading him up to be able to unload through the shot. A lot of players, beginner players, will never do that unit turn, and they'll just patty cake the ball back over. They're missing that unit load, and therefore they're missing out on a ton of power and a ton of spin. So we're here, both hands on the paddle, and as you can see, this is kind of what it looks like. He's just holding the throat of the paddle with his other hand as he's in that continental grip. And then his paddle face is actually facing downwards. So he already has it downwards where it needs to be. You'll see with other players, they'll face it towards the side fence. He just has it straight downwards. And then as he goes into his motion, he keeps it downwards throughout the entire motion, which we're gonna talk about. Number 4 is Jack's swing motion as he hits through the shot. So as I said before, he has his paddle face downwards, his non-dominant shoulders facing towards you. He's in that loaded position. Note where the feet are pointing. They're pointing towards the side fence, but not completely towards the side fence. His knee is bent. And then what he's going to do is, as he detaches his non-dominant arm, he's going to continue to put his paddle face downwards, but put the butt of his paddle facing forwards. So it goes from butt of the paddle facing towards the back fence to butt of the paddle now facing forwards. This is going to create a lag as he pulls through his shot. He's gonna act like he's pulling a rope from behind him. This is what all of that power is gonna be generated through, is through that lag, so then he can then snap through his shot. And in that snap, his paddle face stays downwards, but he's just creating a windshield wiper with his hand. So if you think about waving hello, that's exactly what he's doing. As he snaps, pulls, snaps through his shot. Now notice, I'm not snapping my wrist like this. You'll see this with a lot of players. They have bad form, they're snapping their wrist. This is gonna be very inconsistent. You don't know where the ball is going. I'm snapping like this, meaning I'm waving hello. I continue to keep my wrist backwards, but my forearm is going from open to closed, open to closed, not snapping through like this. So take a mental note of that. You're not gonna create power by doing that. You're actually gonna create unforced errors by doing that. You wanna make sure that you're snapping just like this by waving hello. So butt cap, pull the rope, snaps forward. And then step number 6 is his follow through. He actually follows through out in front of himself. He finishes on that non-dominant side, on his left side, his paddle out in front, tip of the paddle facing towards the other side fence. He's not finishing around his neck. He's not finishing around his shoulder. He doesn't have that big of a motion. He keeps it small, compact, and powerful. So then that begs the question, what does Jack do differently when he's hitting a defensive forehand in comparison to an offensive forehand where he can move forward into the court? There are 2 key differences. One's with his actual motion and the other one's with his footwork. Now, some of the time the footwork can actually stay the exact same, but his motion will slightly change when he's in defense. But for the vast majority of shots, he's gonna just change his footwork slightly, but not very much. So what it is he puts all the weight on his dominant leg when he's hitting a defensive forehand, and he'll actually step backwards as he hits the shot rather than step forwards. But it's still the weight transfer from dominant leg to non-dominant leg. His actual motion, he's still gonna do the exact same load in every single way, but his unload as he swings through the shot, it's gonna be a lot more vertical, a lot more low to high, and he's not gonna finish over here, he's gonna finish on this same exact side. So he's still doing that windshield wiper, he's still doing that lag as he pulls the rope, but he's finishing right here on that dominant side as he steps behind himself. So he's here, boom. He's going low to high more so because he doesn't need that outward motion. He's in defense. So he's just trying to keep that ball in with a ton of spin. He's not trying to create the power. They already created the power. He's just essentially sending that power back. So those are the 2 key differences. With an offense, you're gonna be stepping in. Defense, you're gonna be stepping out. And your paddle on offense is going to be finishing on that left side. And your paddle on defense is going to be finishing on that right side. That's how you hit the best forehand in all of pickleball. Easier said than done. Get out there and practice. And if you want to learn the exact footwork that you need to make it to the 5.0 level, watch this video right here. You're going to absolutely love it. And I can promise you that it will help you build a firm foundation to get to that 5.0 level.